Hey, I guess it started. Sorry. So we're right at chapter 19, and this is probably the most exciting chapter. There's only one more chapter after it, but uh, chapter 19 is pretty crazy. Don't forget, I've been comparing Willie Rumson to Major from the very beginning, and I've told you that the coloring is so bad. Sorry, and I've told you that Willie Rumson is so beyond anything that that Major was nothing compared to Willie Rumson. So you have to be very scared and not underestimate Willie Rumson or what he's willing to do. I wanted to show you, though. I don't know how to show you without it being on my phone, but oh boy, that's that's what a 22 looks like. So they would have been used for hunting, for like deer hunting. The fact that Willie Rumson has one isn't surprising. Most people that live up in the mountains, they probably hunt for sport. But the fact that he's walking towards them holding the rifle, that's an issue. Okay. So anyway, we are back to chapter 19. Just turn around and go out on the dock, said Rumson. He was swaying from side to side. Put that down, said Pete, or I'll shove it down your throat. Rumson raised the rifle and pointed it at Pete's medallion. Out in the dock. You don't have the guts to use that rummy, said Pete. I hoped Pete knew what he was doing. I wasn't so sure. Rumson raised the rifle to his shoulder. I remembered him at the carnival, right here, puncturing balloons with a BB gun faster than Vinnie Marino could blow them up. He's a crack shot. And that means that he's really, really good, like extremely accurate. Don't forget, he was also military trained. He was in the Marines. He's a yellow-bellied coward, said Pete, and he took a step forward. I imagined Willie's finger tightening on the trigger. Joni jumped in front of Pete and turned him around. She pushed him toward the dock. I was surprised at how easily such a small girl could move such a big, powerful guy. You too, beach ball, said Willie. We walked out on the dock. No one could see us from the road now. The snack bar blocked the view. The sand beaches along Marinos were empty too. There weren't even any boats on the lake. Maybe someone across the lake or on the island watching through binoculars could see us, but they'd just see 4 people standing on the dock, one of them with a stick in his hand. Even if they could make out the rifle, they wouldn't call the police. Plenty of people have rifles on Rumson Lake. What are you going to do? Asked Joni. Just let a little air out of the beach ball. One knee, that's all. Dumb rummy, said Pete. Before you crank that bolt for a second shot, I'll be standing on your face. There won't be enough of you left to put in jail. Willie laughed. I'll blow a hole in the fat boy and one in you before you can say Hail Mary, Guinea. Now, Guinea is not it's a derogatory word. It was used with Italians that immigrated over to the New World because many of them came on cargo ships and they came penniless and they only had, maybe a couple pennies in their pockets when they came. And in Italy, the guinea is the name of the penny. So it's the smallest denomination of money. So people insulting Italian immigrants called them guineas because they had nothing but a few pennies in their pocket. But it's not a word to use. Not nearly as bad as other words to use against people, but it is not appropriate. Okay. He held the rifle in one hand as if it were a long pistol. It wasn't too steady. He might miss my knee, but he'd hit something like my stomach or my heart. Just put that down. I wondered if Pete was stalling for time, waiting for something to happen. I'd seen it 100 times before in movies, and I'd done it myself in daydreams, but what could happen here? The U.S. Cavalry? A bolt of lightning? Superman? Untie one of those rowboats, said Willie to Joni. Don't do it, said Pete. I'll give her an extra hole if she don't, said Willie. He's bluffing. Joni looked from Pete to Willie. She didn't know what to do. I said, where are you going to take us? I didn't want to make Willie any crazier, so I made my voice sound scared. Wasn't too hard. Back to the island, said Willie. Finish off what I started, fat boy. My mind raced. In the rowboat, or even on the island, we might have a better chance than standing here on the dock. Tip the boat, getting in or out, snap a branch back in Willie's face on the island. I had some ideas. Untie the boat, I told Joni. Don't do it, said Pete. She looked from Pete to Willie to me, trying to make up her mind. Hey, Willie. Jim Smith ambled out onto the dock. Slow and easy, his hands in the pockets of his rust-colored pegged pants. He was wearing blue suede shoes and a sky-blue shirt with a rolled collar. I never saw him dressed up before. What the hell you want, Jimmy? Come on, let's go up to Lenape. I got a couple of chicks lined up, hot to trot. Yours got knockers you won't believe. Leave me alone. You did it, Willie. You scared the crap out of them. They couldn't spit if their feet were on fire. Let's go. Let's have some real fun. I'm going to shoot the fat boy in the knee, and maybe the guinea, too. They're not worth the slugs, Willie. You got to take a stand somewhere. That vein started pumping on Willie's forehead. No guts around here. You let them walk all over us. You hear what they want to change the name of the lake? They stole it, and now they want to change the name, too. That's just talk, Willie. Jim's face was soft, as if he were talking to a child. But Rumson's face was getting louder. Voice. They'll do it! They'll do it! They'll call it Kike Lake! And that's a derogatory towards Jewish people. Or Wop Lake! And that's anyone immigrating without papers, W-O-P. So anyone that sort of got on a cargo ship and came over as immigrants. This is what Willie's huge problem is. I'm going to stop it. I'm going to stop it right now. My pa didn't have the guts. And look at your pa. He's going to have to work till he drops dead. This used to be our lake, and now I can't even get a lousy job cutting some Jew's grass. You're not going to get a job this way. Ain't for me. It's for all of us. I don't care what happens to me. He was screaming now. They ain't going to push Rumsons around no more. This'll be a warning to them all. He aimed the rifle at my chest. Jim yelled, Go ahead! Go ahead and kill him, Willie. Go ahead. You brought enough grief to your ma. You might as well really fix her good this time. Give her a stroke, too. Now stop right there. Why does he go that way? Because there's no other way to stop Willie. So what is the one thing he has left? Bring your mom into it. The one thing that you love, even when you don't value your own life and you don't care what happens to yourself, you still love your mom. Huh? The rifle wavered. Go ahead. Dig her grave a little deeper. Wasn't enough you couldn't finish school. You got yourself kicked out of the Marines. You wrecked those cars. You never brought no money into the house. Go ahead and kill your ma, too. Don't say that, Jimmy. And he whirled and he pointed the rifle at Jim. Yeah, and while you're at it, kill her sister's boy, too. Jim walked right into the rifle until the tip of the barrel was against his shirt. Jimmy, it was like a baby's moan. Smith snatched the rifle out of Willie's hands, put his arm around Willie's shoulders. Come on, Willie, let's get out of here. I'll take you home with me. They started to walk away, Willie leaning against Jim. My knees felt weak. I looked at Joni. There were tears in her eyes. I turned to look at Pete. He was poised to spring as if he was about to go off the high board. Joni shrieked, "No!" Pete was a brown blur, moving fast. 3 long strides up the dock, a giant leap, and he was crashing down on the backs of Smith and Rumson. There was a solid "doof," and the 3 of them were in a heap on the dock. Jim Smith rolled away. Pete grabbed Rummy by the throat and lifted him up into the air. Jim got up slowly, shaking his head to try to clear it. He picked up the rifle. There was a loud as he snapped the bolt home. The sound stopped Pete cold. He lowered Rumson. "He didn't even have a slug in the chamber," said Jim. Blood went running out of both nostrils. "But there's one in there now. Let him go." Pete's hands opened on Rumson's throat. Willie rubbed his neck. His eyes were wide. He was breathing fast. That vein was pumping so hard I was sure it would burst through the skin of his forehead. "You muscle-bound ass. Why'd you have to do that?" "Nobody pushes me around," said Pete. "Oh, no, you're a real man, a regular John Wayne, just like Willie." Willie was looking around wildly. Jim to Pete to Joni to me before something seemed to click in his mind. He put his head down and charged at me. I saw him coming in slow motion. I heard Joni and Pete, "No," but I couldn't move. I couldn't even think fast enough to brace my feet. I just watched his head slam into my chest, and then the 2 of us were rolling around on the dock, holding each other. I squeezed as hard as I could. I heard him, but his arms were free and his fists were pounding my back and my kidneys and my neck and my head. And I was dizzy and there was ringing in my ears and I felt the strength draining out of my arms. And in a few seconds, he'd break free and then those combat boots would be stomping my face. I used the last of my strength to roll us toward the edge of the dock. I was heavier and I could move his body. We rolled off the dock, locked together. Just before we hit the water, I took a deep breath and held it. And as we sank, I wrapped my legs around his waist and my arms around his head, and we went down. And he struggled in my grip. He reached up to pull at my hair and claw at my face or climb back up to air. But I had him. I had him good and tight, underwater, my territory. I felt a surge of triumph as his struggling grew weaker. "You finally messed with me in the wrong place, Willie boy. I'm the underwater champ. I spent my whole life waiting for a punk like you. I spent my whole life underwater, hiding out so no one could see me. You should have shot me while you had the chance." I felt him go limp, and I still had breath. I'll just keep him down another couple of seconds in case he's faking. But then strong arms separated us. Someone was pushing me up and I shot to the surface. The air was delicious in my burning lungs. Jim was in the water, pushing Willie up the ladder ahead of him. I climbed up after them. Willie collapsed on the dock. His skinny body shook and heaved. His fingers clawed at the wet wood. He tried to raise his head, but he couldn't. He vomited. His legs twitched. He gulped in air and choked on it. I felt sick. Jim kneeled beside him, rubbing Willie's back, holding his forehead while he retched. "Okay," said Pete. "Get that punk on his feet." Pete had the rifle. "Leave him alone," said Jim. He's going to jail, and if you don't move your tail, you're going too. Get him up." Jim took his time, stroking Willie, soothing him. Then very slowly he lifted Willie to his feet, hoisted him over his shoulders in a fireman's carry. Jim started up the dock toward his pickup truck, staggering under Willie's body. "Hold it right there!" boomed Pete. Jim Smith turned. "You're worse than he is, Tarzan." He stared at Pete with disgust. Then he turned away and walked out of Marino's beach and never looked back. Pete lowered the rifle. Joni whispered, "Oh, God." We watched Jim load Willie into the cab of his truck. Willie was retching out the window as the truck pulled away. When the truck was out of sight, Pete said, "Well, we did it. Open the snack bar, Joni. Break out some Cokes." "I don't feel like anything right now," said Joni in a weak voice. "I'd like to go home." "I'll drive you. Both of you." "Thanks anyway. I'll walk." "I'll take you all the way up the hill, big fella. You deserve it." He threw an arm over my shoulder. I was too tired to try to push it off, but I wanted to. "That's okay." "I insist. You really gave that punk something he'll remember the rest of his life. You're a hero." I walked away from under his arm. "Why'd you have to do it, Pete?" "Do what?" He didn't know what I was talking about. "Jump them after it was all over." "Are you serious? Let him get away with that? Push us around like that?" I left him standing there, the rifle in his hand, shaking his head. He would never understand what I was talking about. Halfway up my hill, I had to catch my pants before they slipped off my waist. The Cub Scout knife and the handful of wet sand in my pockets were dragging them down. I had completely forgotten about my secret weapons. Some hero.